You mentioned the traffic
Yes.
earlier. You sometimes, I think you've seen the sheep that come past the houses here.
Here, for example, that's the main traffic,
That's the traffic.
jam here in Bajos and Óbidos. Sheep's on the street.
Sheep on the street, yes.
Sometimes we said, when we leave Belgium, we are going back to our home. So Portugal became our home finally. And also it's something that I heard from different people here. They come back to their home.
Portugal.
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 Our vegetables are like rock stars.
Literally, Portugal is a small Disneyland for grown-ups.
You know, I think that Portugal is like my geographic soulmate.
It's hard to explain what it is because it's a feeling.
And when I went there, I absolutely fell in love with Portugal.
I wanted to feel the crunchiness.
Portugal, the Simple Life Podcast.
Portugal, the Simple Life Podcast.
And we're here on his podcast, Portugal Simple Life.
Portugal, the Simple Life Podcast. Your insider's perspective into Portugal. And our latest episode starts right now.
Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, the Simple Life, and it's another edition of My Home in Portugal. And I'm really delighted to be joined here by Vic Dée, in his home near to Óbidos. Vic, thank you for being on the podcast.
Okay, no problem. It's a pleasure.
We were talking about it's raining today, but still with the rain, even with the rain, it's a nice day in Portugal.
Well, even with the rain, it's a nice day. So the temperature is good, and that's important.
Exactly. Why don't you tell us where we are sitting right now, where we are in the world?
Yes, well, we are here in the Bajos and Óbidos.
Yes.
So a very nice place to live in anyway. It's quite calm. And the most important thing here is that we are near to a highway, we are near to the beaches, we are near to the castle. So that's always been very important for us.
Yeah. How many times have you been to the castle?
No. Well, I must say, when we go there, we are always going very early in the morning.
Good.
So there are no tourists.
Yeah.
Then we drink a coffee, and when the coffee is finished, well, the tourists are coming. So then we go back.
Then you come back home.
And from here we can go walking also. So it's about 4 or 5 kilometers. Nice landscape.
Yes.
And we do it walking.
Yes. We'll talk about the house and how that all happened, but why Portugal? How did that all start for you?
Dylan, that is a very good question. No, the thing is, when I was young, we visited with my parents a lot of European countries. Also, when I got married with my wife and child, a lot of European countries we visited as tourists, but never Portugal.
Okay.
So finally, we are speaking now about 2016, something like that. I was still working, but retirement was coming. So the question for us was, well, what shall we do? And I had a customer, and he said to me, well, I have a house now in Portugal.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So very nice in Portugal, okay. I did know something about Lisboa and the Algarve, but that was the only European country we didn't visit. And he explained also, well, we built a house. No, that's something else, because if we build a house in Belgium, it can be a real disaster. So I said, okay, you build a house 2,000 kilometers from Belgium, away from, how are you going to do it? And then he explained me that we did it with Immo Portugal at that time. He explained also something about the Silver Coast in Portugal.
Okay.
And then he said, well, if you want to go there, you can go to visit our house and stay there for a while. So it was very interesting. And so we discovered Portugal and the Silver Coast.
Okay. So it was because of this customer of yours who that was your first visit to this area.
Yes.
You had never been to Portugal before.
No.
Okay.
And we came by car.
Oh, you drove, yeah.
It's a very interesting trip. It was in Salir do Porto.
The house that he built. Okay.
It was in April.
Okay.
But he also explained
And
indeed.
what year was that?
2017. It was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. And before he also explained us how Immo Portugal was working, the way it was done. He was pleased with all what happened. So we did know a little bit about Immo Portugal also. But we had no intention to buy a house or to build a house. So we came here, we were 2 weeks in Salir do Porto. And for us, as we like to visit a lot of things and we like to walk a lot, it was very interesting because you had the beach, but in a small region you had very different landscapes.
Yes.
So we made a lot of walks here in the region. It was April and the weather was very nice. So what happened after 2 weeks, I phoned to my customer, I said, can we stay a week longer? Yes, no problem. We went to the office of Immo Portugal.
Okay.
We asked, I think it was Anna, we asked, well, are there houses? Can we buy something or build something? So she went with us to see different places. So 2 days later, I spent a lot of time in making calculations. And we buy the house here.
This one.
By Senhor da Luz, yes.
Okay. I want to talk about that whole process because it's, like you said, it's a scary thing. You're 2,000 kilometers away.
Yes.
Building a house in another country with different rules, with a different language.
Yes.
And I want to talk about the process of that. In those 2-3 weeks that you were here, you mentioned you did some nice walks.
Yeah.
And the area is beautiful.
Yeah.
What were the other things that attracted you, that you thought, I want to spend more time here? What were some of those other things that you encountered?
So first of all, we were before already looking, okay, what are we going to do when we are retired? And a very important thing for us was, okay, we want to walk a lot. Physical condition was still very good. So that was very important. And what we found here was indeed the differences, the region, the forest, the sea, all those kind of things. So that made the decision. And it was really a decision we made, okay, we are going to do it. And we did it. But it was really the landscape also, and that was very strange. And we talked about it to a lot of other people coming from Belgium at that time. Because it was mostly at that time Belgians who were coming here, and they all said the same. We come here, the Silver Coast, and for us it's quiet. It's after some hours here, spending here, it's totally different. All the stress and is gone, and that is what we felt.
Was that important for you as well? Because everyone that all of our clients, I mean, you know that Immo Portugal and Portugal Realty is part of a bigger group, and we have clients from all over the world. And everybody, always talks about how calm and the pace of life and the quality of life. Was that important to you? What's happened in your life that brought you to a decision that we want a home, we want a second home, we want somewhere else?
Yes, so important for us was, as I said, we visited a lot of European countries. But we never visited the countries in really the time when all the tourists are there. So always in the periods of the year that's a little bit calmer. And so that's what we found it immediately here in this region. And that was something we said, okay, that makes a difference for us, something where we can go and where it is calm, where we are not nervous.
Did you feel like you needed that now at that time of your life? Something calmer?
Yes.
Somewhere where you can breathe and you have the space? Because what I've heard from my Belgian and Dutch clients is everything is go, 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 go. Yeah. You mentioned the traffic earlier. You sometimes, I think you've seen the sheep that come past the houses here.
Here, for example, that's the main traffic jam here in Bairro Senhor da Luz. Sheep on the street.
Sheep on the street, yes. So that was important for you. It was just somewhere where you can go to calm.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Calm, but where we can move a lot, see a lot of things, do a lot of things. And after all these years, well, it was a good decision for that reason.
Yes,
That's
yes,
really,
Yeah, I know that you've done a lot of things and seen a lot of things, and now we will talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's go back to you came here with Anna.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was just a plot of land.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so what did you feel about this general location that you thought, okay, I can imagine this house here, and this is where we want to buy?
Yes, it was finally my wife who took the final decision.
It's always this.
No, we visited some places here, also near to Nazaré, for example. In fact, at that moment, there was not so many choice. Okay, the times have changed meanwhile, but at that moment, no. But the point was here, when we came here, we were near to the highway, near to Caldas, a city, very calm here. And when we come out of the house, we can make a lot of walks to the left side, right side. It's there are the forest, there's a castle.
Yes.
So that was the main reason why we said, okay, here it's here we want to be. Here will be the construction of our house. Okay. Yes.
Very good. You've stood on the plot now. Anna has said to you, "Here's the drawings, the 3Ds. Here's the plans. This is how much it's going to cost you." Nothing exists. What made you feel okay? This is okay. We're going to do this. What made you feel at peace with that decision?
Well, to be honest, it was first of all my customer I had in that time who explained a lot of the way of working of Immo Portugal. It was, for example, the fact that we had not to pay in advance a lot of money, because if that had been the case, we never done it. Also the way you pay every time as a schedule, you receive pictures and then you pay. That was attractive for us, and that's what our customer was saying, the way it was presented here in the office. That was the reason we said, okay, we will do it.
Yes.
Like I said, it's always a risk, because also in Belgium you hear very strange stories, but okay, we did it. And if you want to know what happened, well, finally we agreed an amount, and at the end we paid the amount that was agreed. We also agreed a certain period. At that period it will be finished. Indeed, it was finished when Immo Portugal told us then it will be done, and it was done.
Yes, yes.
So,
and it was, I think, also very important the fact that you own the land from the beginning. It's your plot.
Yeah.
And then you're only paying for work that was already completed. That was an important safety aspect for you.
It was important not to have financial surprises.
Yes.
You never know in advance, naturally. Things can happen, but here really we had a certain amount, and that is finally what we paid.
Yeah.
So that was something we had to know in advance not to have those surprises. Yeah.
Yes. Of course. Okay. So it was must have been very exciting that you were first coming on a holiday.
Yeah.
Then you stayed another week, and in that week you decided, let's buy something here.
Yeah.
So that must have been exciting. But then you go back home, and now it's to wait.
Yeah.
Now it's time to wait. How important was it for you, and how did it feel, and how did it help that you had someone like Luis and his team sending you the photos, because you had someone that walked with you all the steps of the way?
Yeah, certainly. And that also naturally is very important, because you are living 2,000 kilometers from where you are constructing a house. So it's very important to have persons that you can reach, mostly by mail. And indeed, so every time I send a mail, although I had not to send many mails, mostly they came immediately from Luis or someone else, with the photos, with the evolution of the construction. Yeah. So all contacts went very, very fluently. And that's something you never know in advance.
Yes,
you can hear very positive comments, but okay, finally you have to see what's happening, and that went very, very, very fluently. Yes.
So it made the wait a little bit more bearable, a little bit easier.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. And then we did come in that period 2 or 3 times. We booked an hotel here or something, and to see how the construction was. But okay.
And you came to choose your finishes and things as well, right?
Yeah.
Take me to the day that you got the keys.
Yeah.
And you walked in here. How was it for you and your wife to see a finished house?
Well, it was, it's emotional.
Yeah.
It was emotional because again, it's 2,000 kilometers. You see that the house is finished, and it was finished. All was really, it was fantastic. So it was really, but it was emotional.
Yeah.
But Dylan,
tell me.
Another emotion. We were 4 or 5 days in this house.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at the weather forecast, and a hurricane was coming.
Okay.
So we said, okay.
Was that when you first took ownership of that?
Yes. Okay. So I can tell you, I have
what was the name of the hurricane?
I don't know the name anymore, but we came here on the 2nd of October. And the hurricane was here, I think, 5 or 6 days later.
Okay.
And so I said, when we are a hurricane here in Portugal, what have we done?
Yeah.
We buy the house in a region where there are hurricanes, but no, we heard that it's not so common to have a hurricane here in Portugal. No. But indeed, on the weather forecast, the hurricane was coming. Most strong winds were in the region from between Peniche and Nazaré.
Okay.
So we were really. So what happened about 5 days later, so on 7 or 8 October, don't remember exactly anymore, we had a wind. The windows here, they were making a lot of noise. They went like this. So we thought, okay, now the house is gone. It's finished with the hurricane.
Yeah.
Okay, but the hurricane was gone 1 day later. The house was still here. All was still good, but it was a surprise.
Yeah, it's not normal for us.
No.
Normally, when they say we're going to get a storm, I always think of the worst because I live in Johannesburg, and storms for us is lightning, thunder, and we had a storm last week.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be Storm Benjamin, which is the name of my son, Benjamin. And I still remember the day passed, and I thought, where was the storm? There was no real storm. It's nice.
But this time it was a real hurricane because there was a lot of problems. Something more in the direction of Porto. They had a lot of problems there. But it was very heavy. So.
Yeah, but it was an adventure.
It was an adventure.
It was an adventure. Also important, this is your holiday home, so...
Yes.
Between my job as a realtor at Portugal Realty and hosting this podcast, life is pretty busy. But lately I've been receiving so many messages from people that want to know more about buying property here on Portugal's Silver Coast that I've got to do something about it. So starting now, for subscribers only, I'm offering up a 30-minute session per day. That's 5 30-minute sessions for a one-on-one meeting to talk about buying property here on Portugal's beautiful Silver Coast. This is for subscribers only. So please subscribe to book your session and get in touch with us through the links below via WhatsApp or email to book your session today. I'll be happy to speak to you. It's for subscribers only and it's completely free.
You leave the house on its own for some months.
Yeah.
And this is okay here. It's safe.
What happened in the beginning, we didn't know exactly what are we going to do. Are we going to rent it? How many weeks, months are we going to stay here in Óbidos? But already the first year, we came here in periods of 5-6 weeks. And so that's what happened. Finally, we have always been here about 5 months a year, always in periods of 5 or 6 weeks. So in the beginning there was a family coming here, but it became our home. So we did not rent, but we stayed in total about 5 months here in Portugal every year.
Okay. And let's talk about now that you've got the house. We could talk about what the house is worth today, which is a nice surprise.
Yes.
If you think of what the houses are going now in the area, it's fantastic. But more for me, I'm interested to know, because I know you've done a lot of walking around the country. Did you do the Santiago, the walk, the Compostela?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
No.
But you've done a lot of walking. You've done a lot of exploring. How much more have you explored and enjoyed the country now, coming back and forth between the house over the years?
Yeah, so in fact we discovered a lot. When we see the things we now in our days it's called hiking, I think.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have when I take Óbidos, you have here now about 6 of those PR routes you can do, and there also we discovered in a small region the difference of landscapes. It's really very, very, very different. But what was important for us also is discovering the villages, more not so the touristic places, but the villages. That's real Portugal, where you have no tourists and where you see how people are living. So that was also very important for us. And we met a lot of very nice people here in Portugal.
Yes.
But so we walked. We make a lot of walking here, hiking.
Yes.
As it's called.
What were some of the places you've discovered that you really remember and enjoy?
Yeah, here in the regions, mostly let's say the smaller villages. But if you go a little bit away, naturally, you have Alcobaça. Well, let's say the tourists' side of this region here. But we discover also, everybody knows the monastery of Alcobaça, but not so many people know that there's a fantastic museum. It's a rather not so small museum of audio equipment, video equipment, old phone things that are there, wooden turntables from ancient times.
Amazing.
And very interesting to see. But then when we speak about it here, the people here, also tourists, they don't know. They know the monastery. But so we are always looking things besides what people know. And that's everywhere in Portugal. We went to a lot of places in Portugal to discover.
Yes.
And for example, when we go to a city, Lisboa, Porto, we always go on Sunday between 8 and 9 in the morning. Then you see the streets, and you see the buildings, you see the houses. If you go and the tourists are there, you see the back of a tourist or the front side of a tourist, and you have to see where you put your feet. But so that's then you see really how beautiful a city or village can be.
Yeah, and it's quite nice because we're right in the middle of the country here. Yeah. So to go north, it's 2 or 3 hours. To go south to the Algarve, it's 3 hours.
Indeed.
And you can even go into Spain in 3 hours. You drive here?
Yes.
Every time?
Yeah. So, for example, we went to Monsanto.
Beautiful.
Very beautiful village. But, okay, Monsanto is touristically known by people. Yes. But then we also visit the region around, and that's also fantastic.
Yeah, you have other castles in the area as well, which are amazing.
Yeah. Like here, that's more close to here, Porto de Mos. Okay, you have the castle there, but we like to make a walk in the park and to drink something in the park. And then we can enjoy, we stay hard drinking a coffee and enjoy simply the region, the things we see. Yes. Naturally, driving here, because we did drive a lot to the Algarve, to Monsanto, we discovered also the region of Constancia.
Yes.
Very nice region also. Okay, it takes a lot of kilometers to drive, but the advantage is when it's, for example, 200 kilometers, you drive 2 hours. When you have to drive 200 kilometers in Belgium, you know when you start, but you never know when you arrive. And that makes it's easy. Okay, you drive. The highways are not so full of cars. So,
yes.
that makes us discover a lot. Yeah.
Yes. What you mentioned as well, the people here. What do you want to say about the Portuguese people?
Well, first of all, when we came to Portugal, we tried to learn Portuguese. So we speak already 4 languages, French, Dutch, English, German, and we tried to learn Portuguese. And so, we did learn some words. The only problem was to understand the Portuguese, that Portuguese people are speaking. Oh boy.
Yes.
But that's in every country the same, because you have Portuguese and the local Portuguese, not so easy to do. Yeah. And then we discovered very rapidly, a lot of Portuguese people speak English or even French.
Yeah.
So we try always to speak some Portuguese, even now we try, but finally it turns always to English and French. But Portuguese people don't make a problem about it. Mm-hmm. It's something you have not to do in Spain. If you're in Spain you do not speak Spanish, then they're
mm-hmm. Yeah, but here it's
but here and also very, very friendly. When we go to visit a museum or something, immediately you have people there who want to learn you something, show you something. We have very nice people in Portugal.
Yes, yes, it's true. Any places that you still want to explore in Portugal that are still on your list?
No, not necessarily. I think we have seen a lot. The only thing we didn't see is the north of Portugal. Mm. So it's called the Douro, no? Douro, yeah. So that's something we didn't do. But for the rest, really, we visited a lot of places in Portugal. Also the Algarve. We went to Albufeira. So we came there in Albufeira. I tried to find a place to park the car. It was impossible. And then I saw a lot of people, hundreds, thousands of people there. From my car, I said to my wife, okay, and we went away. So we visited Tavira then.
Tavira is a bit calmer.
It was too.
Vic, what do you want to tell people who are thinking about this, doing something that you've done, getting a home here, a place where they can go, they can escape, they can be calm, because you still have a life in Belgium, you still have family, so it was never a case of, I'm going to leave my country and run away.
No, that's a familiar conditions. So no, it was never really that we should come to live here. That was impossible.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I think that's quite normal. You have your life there, you have your family there.
Yeah.
But here you have something where you can leave the house, it's safe, no one's going to come and break in. That's important. You're in a village, so you know the neighbors are always around. But for people that want to make this decision and want to do something like what you have done, what advice would you give to people who have done this?
Yeah, well, there's an advice that it depends on. In our case, for example, we were here always in different periods, like I said, for 5-6 weeks. So when you have a house, you have to maintain the house. When you are here regular 5-6 weeks, well, it's not so much work. You even can spend some time. But sometimes you see the younger people here who still are at work, they cannot come for longer periods. So they put a lot of trees and plants and other things. I can only say, don't do it. Because you have to maintain it, and if you cannot come for 1 month or 2 months here, well, those plants and trees they become big, and you have to maintain it. So be careful if you want to put a lot of green things in your garden. Also,
because you've got the advantage here with this house. It's modern. It was well built, as we know.
Yeah.
You don't have to come and fix things up every time you come back. It's a nice lock up and go option. But you still have the space, the privacy, the peace and quiet, which is nice.
Yeah. And also another point is, well, if you take that decision, you have to look where are you going to buy something or build something. If you are really someone who wants always to be at the beach, you can build or buy something at Salir or San Martino. But if you like more to travel, for example, well, then you have to do like we did, more close to the highway.
Yes,
because
easy
you are
access.
not so far from the beach, but also very close to the highway if you want to visit something or to. That's also important. The weather is important. The weather here is rather special. It's a microclimate. Most people don't know exactly what the weather is. They think it's like in the Mediterranean, always hot, always warm. That's not the case. But for us, it was very interesting because in the summer period, it's about 23 degrees, 25 degrees. There's a lot of sun, but not too hot. And in the winter, when we are here in Christmas time, it's always 17 degrees. It can be very cold in the morning, but once the sun is there, it's 17 degrees. So, but if you think it's always 30 degrees here and we come to stay in the sun, no.
And it's also not like the north, where it's colder and wetter, and it's kind of like that middle, nicely in the middle.
So the temperature always like this. Sometimes we see, we had a day that we went to Constantia. I still remember, and here it was 23 degrees. We came in Constantia, it was, I think I don't know, 41 degrees, something like that. So it was in June. So very, very hot. So the difference in temperature can be very, very high.
Very nice. One more question. And you come here regularly. You go back to Belgium. How would you describe the feeling when you come back to your home in Portugal?
Sometimes we said, when we leave Belgium, we are going back to our home. So Portugal became our home finally. And also it's something that I heard from different people here. They come back to their home. And if you ask me now why, I don't know. It's a feeling. It's simply a feeling we had, and it was the case 8 years ago when this adventure started, and it is still the case now. And I think it has something to do with the fact it's the atmosphere is completely different. It's calm. It feels calm.
Yes. You think you appreciate it more because you go back and come back?
I think so.
Maybe it would be different if you were here all the time.
I'm convinced it is like what you say. If we have to live here permanently, after some time you will have the feeling, and it's simply human. Well, it's a feeling you have every day, and it's like this. And now that we return to Belgium and we can come home again to Portugal, well, it creates that feeling of we are going home, and we discover again the calm and the region. It's always new. That's,
Vic, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Okay, thank you, Dylan.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.
So thank you once again to our guest, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We always love to hear from you. Don't forget, Portugal The Simple Life also has a magazine, so download it. It's for free. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and as we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to The Simple Life.